I know we've all been there. That one Barnes and Noble trip where you just get a little too carried away. By the time you're walking out, you got your bank account calling you like, girl, are you okay? So every now and then, it's good to switch it up a bit and find more budget-friendly and sustainable ways to feed your book addiction. So occasionally, I will visit my local library when I have time, or use resources like the Libby app to read books that I don't necessarily want to make the commitment to own a physical copy. However, there's nothing like that feeling of owning a physical book to add to your own personal collection. Your personal library is a reflection of your tastes, your personality, and it gives you the opportunity to share the books that you truly love with the people that you love. So for those days when I don't want to break the bank at Barnes& and Noble, but I am itching for a physical copy to add to my personal libraries, I like to check out my local thrift stores. So today, I thought it'd be a great idea to take you through my latest thrifting haul. Now, this haul came from 2 different thrift shops in my area. I'm so excited to show you guys all the books I found. I think this is one of my best hauls yet. But before we jump in, if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what books you think I'm going to go through today and what were some of your favorite thrifted finds. So the first book is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. And I don't know if you can see here on the cover. Again, I went on a rant about this in a previous vlog. It makes me so mad. Like,
I need to calm down. Everything's fine.
Amanda.
But one of my local thrift stores, they like to write in red marker the price of the book. So if you can figure out a way to get this off, please let me know. So our first book is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. And you can see here they wrote on the thrift store, I paid $1.20 for this. I think that was a pretty good price for this book. Now this is my first Lucy Foley book, so I'm pretty excited to jump into this one to see if I like her writing style or not. She has a few other books on her backlist that I've been hearing a lot about and wanting to try, like The Paris Apartment, The Hunting Party, and Midnight Feast. So I think this will be a good first step into that. And depending on how I like this, I think it'll give me more incentive to jump into those other books. Now, The Guest List is a murder mystery thriller, which is similar to the 3 other books that I listed. This book takes place at a wedding on a small island off the coast of Ireland. So the premise of the book is the first day of the wedding festivities, there's some sort of weather event that knocks out the power, and essentially when the lights come back on, they discover that someone at the wedding has been murdered. So throughout the rest of the book, we're following the soon-to-be married couple and all of their guests as we try to figure out why this person was murdered, who was the murderer. But in the midst of all that, we're also learning that a lot of the guests have their own deep, dark secrets that they're trying to keep from coming out as this mystery unfolds. So this sounds to me very Agatha Christie. When I was doing my research on Lucy Foley, I was seeing a lot of comparisons to Agatha Christie, and I've read a couple of Agatha Christie books. I've read Death on the Nile and Appointment with Death, so I'm really interested to see if her writing style is similar to Agatha Christie. But just from reading this book, the fact that the lights go off, there's a murder, and then all these secrets starts to come out amongst the guests too. This reminds me a lot of Clue. I don't know if you guys remember that movie Clue. I'll put it right here. One of my favorite movies growing up. Me and my sister loved this movie. We watched it all the time. And that's what vibe this is giving me. So I'm pretty excited to read this and jump into this one. It probably won't be for my April TBR, but I can tell that I'm going to be reading this one very soon. The next book I found was Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. Now this one is a bit of a throwback. This book was published in 2015 and has been adapted to a movie. I think it's on Netflix, starring Mila Kunis, and that movie I did see. This book follows the main character named Anna Finelli. And during high school, she has a highly embarrassing thing that happens to her that leaves her pretty humiliated and traumatized. And because of that, she's desperate to get away from the identity she's now associated with and completely reinvent herself. And that's exactly what she does. So we catch up with her as an adult, and she's completely reinvented herself to be this perfect girl. She has the fabulous job, the fancy clothes, the expensive taste, the perfect husband. She is living the life. So as this book unfolds, we discover that there's a secret from her past that Anna is desperately trying to keep buried, and to keep these new people, the new people that she's associating with, this new life that she's built, trying to keep all of those people from discovering this dark secret from her past. And she's willing to do pretty much anything to protect that secret. So we follow her throughout the book as she's going through all of these lengths to keep this secret from her past from coming out and ruining the perfect life that she's built for herself. Now, when I saw the movie for this, I thought the movie was okay. I didn't think it was horrible. I didn't think it was like the best thing I've ever seen either. But I am interested to read this one just to see if there are any major differences that were left out from the book compared to the movie. And I have pretty high hopes that this will probably be better than the movie, because that's usually what happens with book to movie adaptations. There's usually just a lot left out. So I'm going into this one pretty optimistic because, again, I didn't think the movie was horrible, but I'm pretty sure that the book will be a lot better. And Jessica Knoll is also the author of Bright Young Women, which I've heard a lot of really great things about. And then I know there's a movie adaptation for that as well, too. So sounds like she's got a knack for having her books be so good that they get movie adaptations. So that's pretty cool. So this next book I was pretty excited to find. Like The Luckiest Girl Alive, I also got this book for $1, which was super exciting. I've seen this book at Barnes & Noble, and I've seen this author all over the place, and I just feel like I'm a little bit behind the curve. So when I saw this book, I thought this was the universe telling me that it's time for me to dive into this author and get a little bit into my romance bag. I'm not a romance girly, so, you know, I'm getting there. I'm trying. But I've heard so many good things about this author. I've heard good things about this book too. I've heard better things about some of her other books, but I'm pretty excited to dive into this one. And that book is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. Not me reading romance. So apparently this book is set in the same world as the book she wrote before this, called Part of Your World. So I didn't know that before I bought this book. So I'm thinking what I'll probably do is I will go out and get a copy of Part of Your World, just so that I can like set the scene. And in case there's any nuggets or anything that are dropped in this book that reference Part of Your World, I won't be out of the loop. I just want to make sure I have like the full well-rounded experience on that one. Yours Truly is about a doctor named Brianna, and she's going through a little bit of a rough patch. Not a little bit. It sounds like she's going through a pretty big rough patch in her life. She recently got divorced. Her brother is in desperate need of a kidney transplant to save his life, and the promotion that she really, really wanted at work is looking like it's probably going to go to the male doctor, who she has a bit of a beef with. Like, they just don't vibe, they don't get along. She had really bad first impressions with him. So all that to say, life's not really looking up for Brianna right now, until this doctor that she's convinced herself is her mortal enemy sends her a letter. And this letter apparently changes completely her initial opinion of him. So this book is kind of like the beauty of allowing people the opportunity to give you a second impression. But he writes her a letter, and the two of them begin exchanging letters, and it kind of transforms their relationship with one another to the point where he eventually offers to be her brother's kidney donor. So throughout the course of all of that, this man that Brianna initially thought she was going to hate, she's kind of forcing herself to take a step back to consider, did she really prejudge this man in the beginning? And is she falling for him? Could this guy be her perfect match? So pretty excited to read this. Again, I'm not a super romance girl. I did take my first step truly into the world of romance. I read back in February, Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I loved that book. Loved it, loved it, loved it. 5 stars, ate it up. So as many good things as I've heard about Emily Henry, I've heard probably equally as much about Abby Jimenez and her writing. So I'm super excited to dive into this one. I said I was surprised to find Abby Jimenez's Yours Truly at thrift stores. That one surprised me. If that one was surprising, this one left me gobsmacked. I quite literally, the day before, was at Barnes & Noble. I only bought one book, and I saw a full-on table display for this book. So the fact that I saw this book at thrift stores and paid, wait for it, $2 for this book left me floored. And that book is James by Percival Everett. Now, the only downer is that this book, as you can see, did not come with the wrap. So the previous owner probably scrapped it or something happened to it. But that's okay, because it's a nice sleek black book, and I like the gold spining on the side, so it'll look perfectly fine on my bookshelf. So for those of you who don't know, James was actually published in 2024, so this is still a fairly new book, and this book actually won the National Book Award for 2024, so it's a pretty highly regarded book. So what I know about this book is that it's a reimagining of the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but we're following from the perspective of Jim, who was the enslaved black man who ended up being Huck's companion throughout his adventures in the Adventures of Huck Finn. When Jim learns that he is going to be sold and separated from his family, he devises a plan to escape, and that is where he ends up going down the Mississippi on this adventure with Huck Finn. And I just think that's a pretty interesting premise. Like, I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, I think in maybe middle school or like early high school, something along those lines. And I remember that book pretty well, Mark Twain, and it's obviously a piece of American literature too. So to see this interesting take on it, where you had Jim, who was obviously one of the main two characters in the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but this puts the spotlight on him in this book. Pretty interested to see how this ends up. Now, I did read another book by Percival Everett, and I did not make the connection until after the fact. Erasure, which is a novel written by Percival Everett, I believe in the early 2000s, and that is actually a movie adaptation now. And I rated that book, I think I gave it a 3-star on Goodreads, but it really was like a 3.5. And it was a very well written book. I think he's a very Percival Everett's a very intelligent writer. He's a very artistic writer. I think the hang up that I had with Erasure, in terms of why I only rated it a 3.5, was just more so centered around the themes of Erasure. That was more of a satire on Black American literature. And while I know it was supposed to be a satire, there were times and like certain themes in that book that just made me a little it just kind of made me forget that this was supposed to be a satire. So I did take some of those themes and like some of the representation in that book. I think I took it a little too personally, which is probably a me problem. But I say that all of that to say that he is still a really good writer. And the fact that he writes Black stories, unique Black stories, new Black stories, I'm always going to support that. So I was super excited when I was able to find James. I probably will still buy a hardcover copy from Barnes & Noble just to support him, and then I would probably gift this copy to someone, but I couldn't pass it up when I saw it at the thrift store. I just had to grab it. Then we have The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. I don't know much about this book. I have not heard much about this book, to be honest. I grabbed it because this cover is sickening. I love this cover so much, so that was really part of the reason why I bought it. So you can see on the back, I got this one. This is actually a hardcover I got for $1.20. I don't know what that L stands for. It's just always like that particular thrift store that I go to, they always put that L on there. I have no idea what it stands for. So this one is apparently a reimagined Gothic horror. And when I hear Gothic horror, I think of books like Dracula, Frankenstein, Dorian Gray, a little bit of Rebecca, like classics like that. So after doing a little bit more research, I was kind of reassured in this pick, because it definitely pulled me in, knowing that this is along the lines of like a reimagined Gothic horror. This book takes place in a fictional version of post-war Britain, and essentially what I gathered from the synopsis of this book is it is about a woman who, during this time period, she finally finds her husband. She's kind of been on the search for someone to marry her, to give her a new life. She finally finds her husband. And, after they get married, she moves into his manor. And so apparently he's a rich guy. And throughout the course of the book, we kind of discover along with her that her husband is hiding things from her, and he may not be all that he portrayed himself to be, and there's some darkness there in him. So when I was doing my research in the book, there were a lot of comparisons to Rebecca with this book, and Rebecca's a book that I've also been really wanting to read for a long time too. I think I'm a little intimidated by that book. Don't ask me why. I'm just intimidated by Rebecca. So maybe this will be the one that kind of gets me started, and then I will go back and read Rebecca just to do kind of a comparison between the two. Obviously, this is a new age reimagining of a classic like Rebecca, so I'm not expecting them to be a one-for-one, but I am interested to see the take on this one, and I think reading something a little bit modern will draw me in to want to read the classic even more. So this next book I'm super excited about. The synopsis of this book sounds so fun. I love the premise of this so much, and that book is Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Rayburn. Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. This book is so fun, guys. So this book is about 4 female retired assassins who basically get treated to this retirement cruise, just kind of mark the end of their careers as assassins. But the plot unfolds as they're on this cruise and they discover that they are the targets of younger assassins. So they're on this cruise just trying to, basically they're having to come out of retirement to protect themselves and figure out what this plot is to take them out the game. That sounds so fun. And I actually just discovered too that there is a follow-up. There's a second book to this series that came out in January of this year too. So I'm excited to read this one so I can get to the second one too. This one's gonna be fun. And the final book from my haul was The Lonely Hearts Book Club by Lucy Gilmore. You can see here on the cover, I paid $1.60 for this one too, and they wrote on the cover, but that's okay. Now this one I've seen around Booktube a lot, but to be honest, I haven't really done much research into it. I don't really know a ton about this book in terms of what the overall impression or people's takeaway, like rating for this book was, which is kind of nice. That means I can read it with an unbiased opinion and just kind of go into it not really having any sort of expectations. So that's nice. All I know is that this is another Bookish book, which I do love. I didn't think I liked Bookish type books, but I definitely think I do now because Funny Story was a Bookish book, and as you heard me say earlier, I ate that book up. I loved it so much. I thought it was so cute. So this book is about a young librarian who has this sort of love-hate, like kind of banter relationship with the grumpy old man from her town who visits the library pretty much every day. And all of a sudden, when he stops visiting the librarian, she gets a little bit concerned because she's used to seeing him pretty regularly. So she tracks him down to figure out what happened to him, why he stopped showing up to the library. And when she finds him, she does find out that he's bedridden with some sort of illness. We don't know, or I didn't discover that from the synopsis of the book. But in order to kind of bring him back to life, because he's pretty lonely, and she's honestly a little bit lonely in her life too. So to kind of keep their relationship going, since he's not able to go to the library as often, she decides to start a book club. And this book club obviously pulls in people from this other like sleepy little town, which kind of gives me like Stars Hollow vibes, like when I hear it being described. As this book club kind of unfolds, it's basically like a human connection story, I think, where you see the value in human connection and how there's a book for every soul, a book for every person, for whatever they're going through. So I think it's a pretty cute premise. I'm excited to see what it's about. Again, it's another Bookish book, so I'm excited about that. And then when I was reading about like the grumpy old man, Carl from Up popped into my head, and I think Carl is so cute. So I'm excited to read about like this curmudgeony little old man in this book. I think it's going to be pretty cute. So that's the Lonely Hearts Book Club. All right, that is the end of our book haul. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. And honestly, I think we did pretty good. I think these are some good books. There's some pretty interesting reads on here. Some of them that I've heard before, some of them I've kind of were familiar with, and then some other ones that I have no idea or I've never heard of them before, but they just pulled me in just from reading the back and the synopsis of the book. So I'm excited to read these, get them added to my shelf, give you guys my feedback and opinion on whether or not I liked any of these books. If you've read any of these books I just went through, definitely let me know. I want to know what you guys think, if you think I'll like them, if you liked them, and then what were some of your favorite hauls that you guys have thrifted recently? So yeah, that brings us to the end of this. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you real soon.